Hello, welcome to Podcast First Play, episode 254. I am one of your hosts, Carl, and as always, I'm joined by a man who asked me, how do you know how heavy a chili pepper is? Give it away now. Danny Bloody Dan!
Evening.
Good evening, sir. How are thee?
A little cold, which is why the old pimp dressing gown has decided to make an appearance, because it's fucking cold out there, my lad.
It's gone a bit chilly. Not chilly enough for heating, but chilly nonetheless. I've only got a jumper on, but I think I'm going to move to dressing gown territory soon.
Yeah,
definitely getting there. I am going to say though, Dan, we both know what we're going to talk about today, which is unusual because normally I tried to make it a little bit of a surprise, but you actually told me the big news for this week, and we'll touch on that in a moment. I do have some news for you, though. Some news that is going to both shock and anger you. Hopefully, because it did me. So, a new actor has entered the race to replace Daniel Craig as the next James Bond.
Ooh!
So,
like a bit of Bond news.
Well, we already know in terms of like bookies and everything else. You got Aaron Taylor Johnson, who he's been called back to do the iconic barrel shot. So I assume he's going to be very high up in the possibilities. Obviously, did you know about James Norton? He was quite a popular.
I don't know who that is. I don't think.
See, off the top of my head, I can't give you an exact. You do know who he is, but I didn't until I Googled it at the time. But yeah, there's been quite a few major movements in recent weeks. However, something I didn't know, Christopher Nolan was bored in rumours. Sorry, Christopher Nolan bored in franchise as the film's next director, and Cillian Murphy then joined the frontrunner. This isn't the news though, Dan.
Oh. Because
that apparently was a few weeks ago, and I never saw anything about that.
No, I didn't know.
However, the newest entry is Harry Styles.
For fuck's sake!
That's exactly what I wanted, Dan.
No one who's got he did Dunkirk, and he wasn't particularly good in that. He was fine, but it was whatever. Again, your Tom Hardys, your Cillian Murphys, they were better in it, quite frankly. Even though they were in it far less. Yeah, they're actors, not fucking pop stars. Like Cillian Murphy, I'd kind of be okay with, the same as Aaron Taylor Johnson. But in my opinion, they're too big. You know, they're very well known. I mean, like Dan Craig and Pierce Brosnan and that. You know, they've still been. You know, they've done plenty of stuff, but they wouldn't be as big of a name as a Bond would take them. But you know, they've done they've done massive things themselves. Harry Styles, though, like surely he's more well known. He's bigger than all of them.
I'd say in terms of not necessarily talent. But
no, in terms of how many people would recognise it. If anything, it would be a box office draw. I'd give him that.
I'd refuse to. I genuinely would refuse to watch it.
No, I'd just think it would change the tone of Bond. So rather than it being sort of like, you know, when you got Pierce Brosnan and you got your GoldenEye, it's a bit darker, it's a bit grittier. And then, you know, by the end of his kind of run, it was the most silly that they've done so far, really. Yeah. And then you got your Dan Craig back, and they went, no, let's go back, let's do it, you know, even more gritty, even more hardcore. You know, we've got the Bourne franchise, we've got the new Mission Impossibles, we know what they look like, let's kind of just play off that a little bit. With him, though, he seems like he'd be more of the charmer Bond. Exactly. He'd be, you know, he's a bit more sort of a bit smoother, a bit more charisma. Which, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it means to me that that would make more sense if they reset it and they put it back where it was originally in like the 60s.
Which I can't see them doing that. Like,
I disagree. I think that because other than them, like the last one, don't forget, it ended with Bond being exploded because he couldn't go near his daughter because he'd been given a nanovirus that meant if he touched anyone who 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 touched his daughter would kill her. Like, you can't get more ridiculous than that in terms of like crazy future tech or whatever. Like, take it all back and just have a, you know, like a gentleman spy, like a Kingsman kind of thing, you know.
But that's the thing, we've got it in Kingsman, and
I know, but that's a parody of itself. All that.
I genuinely, I mean, I hate Harry Styles with a passion. Like, no matter what he's in, whether it's music, whether it's a TV show, whether it's a movie, I can't stand him. Like,
Why?
I just hate him. Like, one of the things where he referred to himself as our David Bowie. It's like, no, David Bowie is our David Bowie. So,
yeah, he very much is. Thank you very much.
If it's going to be someone, it ain't going to be you. Like, no chance in hell.
Yeah.
I don't like One Direction or anything, but I do genuinely think he's the least talented of all of them. And he looks a bit like a knee. So I
think he's got that
I don't see the appeal of him.
I think he's got that odd handsomeness that people go for, but people have locked in on him as like he's this up and comer now. He's a Timothy Chalamet, he's a young
That's a
lad.
good looking lad.
He's attractive. He's had it a couple of goes, but I think he was in that. Wasn't he in that new? There was a film that I watched on Amazon.
Yeah, I know the one you're gonna say. He's a soldier or something.
No. Like Florence Pugh's in it as well. It's like some sort of like government, some weird government testing thing that they'll work at. I think he's in that, and he was fine in that. I mean, I don't think he's a terrible actor. I don't think he's a terrible person. I don't know enough about it nor care. But he seems like you couldn't go, oh, it's going to be a continuation of the Dan Craig type of Bond, and then this dude's like he's way too small, he's way too young. You'd have to change the entire tone of it to be a charmer. Like, you'd have to take it back to the 60s. You'd have to be a Roger Moore. You'd have to be like a sexy cigarette smoking.
I think with
a tuxedo on that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It gets worse though, Dan, because it's Mr. Styles entered the market to play Bond amid rumours he would not only star in the movie but also perform the coveted soundtrack.
I would rather they get Shirley Bassey to come in and play Bond rather than have him do Bond and then his own theme tune as well. Fucking Lord.
Write the theme tune, sing the theme tune. But he's not Bond. And like, there's I genuinely think Aaron Taylor Johnson will do a good job if it's him.
You've seen Bullet Train, haven't you?
Yeah, I think he's. I mean, I don't want him to have a Cockney accent, but
no. Like, I mean, I was going to say if you took the accent away, but the physique, the kind of the drive behind him.
Yeah, even keep the mustache. That's fine. But
no,
there's so many good choices. Like Idris Elba's an excellent choice, but he's too old. No, I mean, he's older now than Craig was when he finished. So,
oh right, yeah.
He would have been a real good choice, but they missed the mark on it. Preferably pick an up and comer that no one knows. There's no expectations of them that way.
Exactly,
but
yeah.
That, like you say, that's not a box office draw. Like, if nothing else, as bad as Harry Styles will be in anything he's ever in, but as bad as he would be as Bond, that opening weekend would be huge, and it would.
Yeah, for sure.
Regardless of how good the film is, but I can't see them signing off on someone like Harry Styles because of that. It's not 50-50. Like, a lot of people wasn't happy with Daniel Craig when he was cast.
Yeah, of course.
But it's not even that split. If some people love him, some people like him. Everyone who likes Bond will be against Harry Styles being Bond. And all the people that love One Direction and Harry Styles will be the only ones that are dead happy about it. And they haven't seen any of the other Bond films.
I was going to say, but this would be a restart. I mean, you definitely can't pick up the original story at this point. No. You'd have to be starting the whole thing again. Yeah. But if you take it away from like unstoppable mountain man who's basically a tank and he can fly a plane through trees and still manage to hit a car, sure. That's still, I don't know why that still winds me up so much. But I was just like, come on, mate. Like, I just don't see him just being that. Like, even in Casino Royale, that was kind of like, that was that first sort of like, oh my God, this guy's insane. Like, where he's chasing that Sebastian Fuquan, I think his name is, like the free runner.
Yeah.
Chasing him down, and he's just barreling through walls, and he's just this unstoppable machine. But he was massive as well. Like, he was this absolute huge dude, like clearly like SAS background. Like, he looked like, this guy would just walk into an embassy and blow it up if he wanted to. Whereas if they do go down the Harry Styles route, it would be a spy, but he's too handsome to be a proper spy because he would just everyone would be like, "Fuck, look at that dude over there. He's the most handsome man here."
He wasn't the suave, debonair, dashing, good-looking chap though in the books, was he?
No, he's an everyman. That's the point.
Average Joe, blends in, not able to be spotted a mile off from the crowd. Which, to be fair, whilst Craig wasn't the debonair, charming Bond everyone was like kind of remembered from the other ones, he still stood out.
he was in Casino Royale though. Like, everything just died with him. Like when Vesper died, pretty much. Like, he was not happy, but he was certainly, he was a bit friendly, he's a bit chatty, he had a little bit of a joke and a flirt.
Yeah. I mean, you see him in the opening, because I still think Casino is the best Bond film of all time.
I kind of agree.
I love it. But you get that opening where he's getting that 00 license, and he's drowning someone in the fucking sink and everything else. But when it's more the going into the casino stuff, and he's playing that Bond role more, you get to see both, like a duality that you've never seen with a Bond before, where he is, like you say, this unstoppable fucking renegade tornado machine to Bond. and you get to see that, and I don't think any of the other Bonds really did. I mean, I suppose in the older ones like Connery and even Roger Moore showed that like you could be Bond and a sexist rapist, but like, other than that, none of them really had that spit, not personality, but like
I mean,
duality.
Dalton was kind of your closest, I think, because
I liked Dalton.
Pierce Brosnan's Bond was still a bit more of a nutter than. But he was a bit more cold blooded, I think. Like he'd just shoot people just because fuck you, bang.
Yeah, I've got a license.
Yeah, I've got it. Might as well. Whereas Bond just like the Dan Craig Bond just seemed more. It was the weight of the world against him. Like like in I was watching the other day Skyfall. And Javier Bardem, he's Mr. Silver. He's got this whole elaborate plan to blow up MI6 and then get them to trigger a thing that does a thing that does a thing that does a thing so that he can attack M in a courtroom. And there's like 2 or 3 sort of police officers in there that get taken out pretty quickly. And then Bond comes in and he obviously saves the day. But every time something like that happens, it's like, you're in London, right? That's where MI6 is based.
Yeah. Where
are all the other 00s? I mean, I don't want like an Avengers Assemble kind of it's 001 to 12 or whatever. I just, the only 00 that we've ever seen so far is Sean Bean, and he was a bad guy.
But that's what I mean. There has to be at least another 6, because obviously he's 7, and
no, there's at least because in Spectre, I want to say, the ridiculous unspy car of that Aston Martin that looks like it's from 150 years in the future. Like the Vanquish and the DB9 are some of my absolute favourite like Aston Martin design. Like I just think the DB5 is a classic, but the 9 is just gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah, even the Vantage, like.
But that like prototype one, because I don't think that wasn't for commercial sale. That was just something that they made. I don't know if it was a prototype or they just made it for the movie.
I think it was just made for the movie. I could be wrong on that though.
But it's so ridiculous looking. Yeah. It looks like something that Tony Stark's built. This is crazy future car, but that was supposed to be for 009.
Yeah, and
then he nicks it basically. So there's at least 9 of them.
There has to be. And like you see, it's better done in stuff like again Kingsman. There's different people from like you've got the ones over in England, you've got the ones in America and Mexico, whatever. They even do it in Mission Impossible, like where you've got
there's like multiple agents. And
yeah,
stuff, yeah,
and the fact that especially when it's in London, well, in England rather, they should be all over the fucking place because that's where they are.
Yeah, I guess. But when you go into sort of like lockdown protocols, like, head office has been blown up, would you keep all your agents just loose in the world?
Yeah, you call them back.
Yeah, because I mean, unless they were like, oh, well, we've got 001 to 5 that are all in the Middle East doing like intelligence missions. We've got, everyone else. Bond's the only one that's been dead, technically. And then he's just turned up out of the blue, like, well, you're here, so you might as well come. But that's only on the basis that everyone actually thought he was dead.
Yeah.
So if he just turned up and was like, I'm here and I'm ready to help, and she's like, oh, good, okay, well, yeah, you can help out then. That's you didn't know he was alive. He just turned up and he's like, yo, I'll help out. Why wasn't there anyone else that was called in to back you up?
Not just that. What if he turned?
Nah, that's the one thing that they can kill him off. Sure, give him a kid and kill him off. Fine, he can never go rogue.
Oh no, I'm
no,
not...
don't mean like don't like follow orders. I mean like he wouldn't like
betray the country.
Yeah, for sure. That's
not what I mean. But I mean the fact that they just went, oh yeah, if you're back, just tag along. Here's all the details of everything that we're doing. There was no like.
Well, they put him through testing and that again, didn't they? Because he failed them all.
That's in. No, what about No Time to Die when they bring him back?
Oh.
Because that's our retirement, technically, rather than death.
Right. I don't remember the start of that.
Yeah,
he's not just like working in a bar or something, is he?
Yeah, he's just milling out, just chilling, enjoying himself, having mojitos and shit.
Yeah. I've only seen it the once. I'll need to go back. I was meant to watch it again when I was doing my Bondathon the other week. But No Time to Die wasn't on Amazon Prime anymore for some bloody reason.
Is it not? I thought they added them all.
So did I, but I think that was added on originally when it like came to streaming. But I think that when they've just added them all back on again, because like GoldenEye and all that, they're all leaving soon, I think. So you can rent it or whatever, but I'm not too fussed about it. But like that whole franchise is still built around him being this. Oh, thank God Bond's here. He can go in and just one-man army this whole thing. We'll send him to an island full of psychopaths and he'll probably blow them all up, but he'll probably get what we need. So, sure. I just don't see Harry Styles being... You could just put the weight of the world on him. He seems too young.
I don't think you could just lean on his shoulder, never mind anything else.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, though. It's like, it's easy enough to say, well, I can't see him in the role. I can't see him doing this. I can't see him doing that. As soon as you see him... Like, it'll always be. It's the same with Casino Royale when that came out. People were like, ooh, boo, this Bond, boo.
Yeah.
And then they saw the first trailer, they're like, oh, dang, this looks pretty good, actually.
Well,
it's not just his portrayal, it's everything that's written around it as well. Like, if it's a dying of a day, it doesn't matter who's in the tuxedo. It's still going to be a bag of tits, isn't it?
A lot of people don't like Dalton, and he hasn't got the best films, but I think Dalton's a good Bond in bad movies.
Agree.
And I think if he was handled with better director, with a better write and everything else, he would have been very good. And that's potentially the case for this. Harry Styles could be Bond, but because he's wrote the movie, directed the movie, and starred in the movie, whatever, it turns out to not be very good. But what I've seen him in, I do not rate him as an actor at all. And that's not just because I don't like him. There's a lot of people. I watched a handful of moments of Mammals on Amazon Prime that I didn't know had James Corden in it, which is why I only watched a bit of it and then turned it off.
I don't know what that is.
Again, now I couldn't tell you what it's about because I haven't seen it enough, but it seemed fine. But it's got James Corden in, so I ain't going to watch it. So, but equally, there's a lot of things that good actors are in that they're just not good in it. So you're never going to know it's going to happen. But I can't see it being Styles. I can see it. The fact that Aaron Taylor-Johnson has been called back and he's filmed the barrel scene, that seems as good as done. In my
I'd be
eyes.
okay with that because I don't just see him as like, he's not just kick-ass. He's not random soldier from Godzilla.
No, he's crazy.
He's not. Oh God! Maybe they go, let's cast him before that comes out, so everyone can just get past it very quickly. But again, he still does seem a little too well known, a little bit too big.
I think in terms of names and stuff, he's one of the. He's getting more popular now, but of the people on the list, or at least the people that have been rumoured, he seems to have that in between, where he's not as like big and hench as Daniel Craig was.
I don't know, man. He's pretty fucking like in Bullet Train. He's pretty big.
No, he's jacked and he's very but Craig was broad and he's athletic, 6-pack and everything else. And like, you could very clearly you could look at him and go, yeah, he can handle himself. But equally, you can see him as a bit of a ladies' man as well and a bit suave.
Yeah,
and he's got a very pretty face. And he seems like he could do that double thing that we was on about with Craig. And I think he would be a good choice. But he's I had a look, he's 33. And
you could get another 10 years of films.
I think you could, but it depends what hold Sony have with him for this Marvel universe that they're making.
Well, presumably by this point they could have already finished it.
Oh, not specifically Craig. I just mean like, is he going to be bought into other things and he signed a contract to do another 15 movies or whatever?
I don't know if his agent's got any sense. They'd be like, look, these DC things are a bit. Not DC, sorry, these Sony ones.
No, both of them.
So maybe they just said, let's just do the one and see, because like if they go, like, you know, when he's kind of getting that kind of role, and they were like, look, I might be able to get you a Bond interview and actually play Bond. He'd be like, yeah, I don't want to do 3 Craven movies over potentially be Bond instead. Are you kidding me? No. I mean, even if it was like, MCU at its heyday, like, you know that it could go up, it could go down. It depends on, you know, what fads people are into.
Yeah.
Bond's been going for like 60 fucking years, man. Like, that's not going anywhere. It'll be bought out and it'll be broken down and there'll be problems and whatever, but that film will still come out.
Yeah, we'll still have Bond. And I mean, I watched Mission Impossible last week. Dead Reckoning, Part 1, I forgot what it's called then. And I still stand by, from maybe 3, but definitely 4 onwards, Mission Impossible, they haven't missed a beat with the Mission Impossibles.
No, I agree. I don't think I've had I haven't sort of gone, it was all right. It's like, oh wow, that was actually pretty. Fucking hell.
They've been real good. Like, and I know 1 and 2 are very different compared to the rest of the franchise, but at the time 1 was fine. I liked 2 when it came out, even though I know it's not a very good film, but it worked for that era. And it's that John Woo magic and everything else. It's just like, if you watch it now, it's just like, ugh, that's not good. But
if you compare Mission Impossible 2 to Mission Impossible 4,
yeah,
like,
big jump.
they're totally different movies.
Yeah, and honestly, like, this one's no different. It's real fucking good, but you can tell with the Craig films, they've looked at Mission Impossible, they've looked at the Bourne.
Bourne was a big factor,
legacy,
I think,
and all that stuff, and
yeah,
it's very much different to Bond as we know it, and in a good way. And I don't. They either carry on that, so it's the same kind of feeling, because again, Ethan isn't. He's not James Bond. He gets fucking battered and stuff, but obviously he knows what he's doing. He's a smart and resourceful, not necessarily spy, but what is it? The Mission Impossible tagline things, like espionage.
They're like an intelligence agency.
Yeah. And I can see them going for more of that with whoever they have next. So it's not the big hulking tank of Craig, but it is a bit more, not necessarily going back to Roger Moore, but maybe styling it a little bit closer to Mission Impossible rather than the Bourne films.
If you just parallel them like that, though, like that's the only comparison that people are going to be. It's like, you're just copying fucking Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah, they need to do more than that, obviously.
but that's why I think it would make sense, depending on who they have and how they think that they can sell that person doing a particular. You know, are they a tank? Are they a spy? Are they a ladies' man? Are they whatever? Like that would, I think, who you get to play him would be a big factor in that as well. Like, so if they go, well, we've got styles and we can reboot the whole thing. We can go back and do shoe gadgets and, you know, give him a jetpack that's, you know, ridiculously sized and all that. but we couldn't do that in the modern day because he would just be, he's going up against mercenary groups and drones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's no real, but if you go back to the 60s where there's no security cameras and shit, and all you got to do is just go, hey baby, and just sort of just charm your way into the back room of a bank or whatever, and then bang, you can steal a thing. That would fit better for me, but I think you could have a happy middle ground without Aaron Taylor Johnson, where you could, again, maybe, because again, when you've got sort of like, fucking quantum communication and drones and satellites and space stations, even when they did space stations and stuff in like the Roger Moore movie, like Moonraker and stuff, like that whole thing was on a space station. But there was still like, you didn't just have a phone that you could just go bloop, bloop, open the door, bloop, bloop, the car can fly now. It was still like, you've got to have a ridiculous suit on, you got a jetpack up there, and you got a ridiculous laser gun. But there was no like nanotech. It just, you could grow a suit, or Q Labs have just come up with this. You just put this tie on, and it will just turn into a wetsuit and a tactical suit and a tuxedo and a dinner jacket and whatever. Jeans and t-shirt. So you can you just tap your toe and just blend into your environment like that. It just seems so, because that's the whole sort of like argument of like the sort of the newer Dan Craig Bonds. Yeah. It's just sort of like, well, the 00 section is irrelevant because you're sending a guy to go and do a thing. Well, we could just hack into their computers and bang, it's done. Yeah. And, people don't get shot and there's not helicopters exploding in town centres and whatever. So the whole point of that was like, we should be moving away from these kind of like, individual agents. And obviously the like M and whatever, their argument is, well, your drones are still, they're not, they need to know when to not pull the trigger as well as when to do so. So if you just took a step back from all of that, and there's still cool cars, but they'll be like classic cars, and there's still gadgets, but they'll be, it'll be like a fax machine that can print out a message on your belt. And you're like, oh no, got to get out of here quick to the plane. Oh, there's no airports just everywhere. We've got to get to a main airport. We've got to nick a private.
Need to get a taxi to the
exactly.
airport.
Yeah, you can't just sort of jump on a thing and it will just fly you there. You've got to think about a problem, and it's actual spycraft. That seems more interesting to me than just like a new nanotech satellite that can blah 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 blah. And it's like, oh god, really? Just another thing now that's just incomprehensible.
I suppose you have to look at the current market, because this isn't going to be like a next year situation, but
goddamn,
whatever the market is, I mean, like, people are getting more, because of stuff like Stranger Things and that, people are getting more into not necessarily the 80s but retro stuff. So eventually there might be a big interest in doing an older version of Bond, but I can't see it being, so if they did, for example, something similar to Moonraker, you wouldn't have all the big, they'd still make it as sleek and cool as possible, but
your laser pistol, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, I would be fine with it. I'm just not fine with Harry Styles doing it.
I think you're probably right. I think that they go, he's a popular person, he's a draw, but he's not the right kind of person that we need associated to the project. Maybe
it's bad enough he's Thanos' brother.
What?
It's bad enough he's Thanos' brother.
Apparently so, yeah. Although that's never come back to anything. Well, nothing to do with the Eternals.
I'll say they've just kind of like it's the Eternals story about it, but it's canon. So
apparently, yeah. I think that there's potential there if they did a whole reboot and he's like sort of like an Austin Powers, kind of like a cool shagadelic kind of Bond, where he can just sleep his way through a problem, rather than have to bulldoze his way through it.
I mean, that works for both, to be fair.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But I'd like to see when we actually get a proper, like, again, I think it would make more sense if they just went, like, Cillian Murphy, again, he's well known enough, but I think people would be excited about him.
I think they'll be excited.
Oh, yeah,
but
that he'd be a good Bond, yeah.
Again, age, I think he's got to be late 30s, hasn't he?
Oh, older than that, I reckon.
Yeah. So I think he's missed the mark for the age-wise, for what they're going to want for a Bond franchise.
Yeah. Well, how old I don't suppose you know how old Harry Styles is, do you?
28, something like that.
Really?
I don't think it's on this thing. have a. Oh, sorry, Google.
You're going to keep on getting One Direction suggestions now.
What's going to happen? He's 29.
That's not too bad then. Because, like, typically Bond is like, he's a naval background, isn't he? He's a naval commander. So you can't be 23 and be Bond because, like, you wouldn't have the military experience to get you to that point. By 29, though, if you just left school and just went straight into the military, then, yeah.
I mean, it's doable. I know people that came out of the Navy a little bit younger than that, actually. But he doesn't look that age. And whereas, like, again, just to bring him up again, but Aaron Taylor-Johnson he's got a very pretty face, but he looks of a mature age at the same time. And I think he's good enough actor. He's good enough action star, and I think he would fit the bill. But I don't think he would make a good Bond. But the opening of Kingsman, and you got the guy who I don't know what his name is, but he was in Coupling, that old British sitcom. He was also in Pirates of the Caribbean as well.
Yeah, he was the admiral or whatever.
Yeah, he's in the opening of Kingsman as like your typical Bond character. And I remember watching at the time and I'm like, man, he might have made a good Bond. I don't think he would, but like, I'd rather have someone like that if we're going down that kind of route.
What about what's his face from The Walking Dead plays Rick?
Too old again, isn't he?
At this point, probably, yeah. But like, he's got the right kind of face,
I think he could have made a good Bond.
He's got the track record of just being a fucking nut job.
I mean, when he was younger, would have been better because in my knowledge of, again, I don't know what the actor's name is, so we're just going to call him Rick. But my knowledge of Rick's like filmography was Teachers.
Yeah, he was in Teachers back
and then
in the day,
and then The Walking Dead. So in terms of like,
wasn't he in what's the Notting Hill? Wasn't he in that?
I couldn't say.
What's the Christmas one that was like got Hugh Grant and
Love Actually?
No, not Notting Hill. Yeah, that's the one.
Love
I'm pretty
Actually.
sure he's in that, isn't he? Yeah,
I've never watched it, so I couldn't say.
I think I've seen clips of it, but I'm fairly sure he's in that.
I've seen the clip like where they're opening the door. It's like a
with Keira Knightley.
Big pivotal moment thing with
he's got the
cue
cards, hasn't he?
Yeah. So yeah,
he's done a few big things. Yeah,
but
people would know him.
But I think more people would know him because of Walking Dead, and
Easily.
I think if you snapped him up before that, he's a good enough actor, but not massively well known enough to where you could. It's kind of like an up and comer, but not really. But I think he could have been a good Bond.
Yeah. Definitely.
But I say I still think they missed the mark not getting Cavill. I think Cavill would have been a really good Bond. Not now, because he's as big as Superman, and that's too big. But
and also he's been Superman, which means if you put him in a tuxedo, then it's like, oh, it's just Superman, but shooting people.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd be able to disassociate it that easily.
It's when you see some, like, I can't think of someone off the top of my head, but there's a lot of actors who you'll see him in something else, but you still associate him with the other thing.
Yeah.
And
like David Tennant.
Yeah. He's Doctor Who.
He's done Good Omens or whatever, and then he's done a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, you see him, you see Doctor Who, of course.
Doesn't help some actors play everything the same. So like Ryan Reynolds is Ryan Reynolds, which is weird because you associate him with himself no matter what the film is. Keanu Reeves is an excellent one, but someone like Cavill, like when he was, I don't know if you ever watched it, but he was in a show called The Tudors, which was real good. It was like Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones, but it was based on Henry VIII. Very, very good. And he was in that, and back then, he wasn't this big fucking brick shit house that he got to for Superman. But even then, I remember saying to Zoe, I was like, he'd be a real good Bond. Because he's just got
a good jaw, hasn't he?
he's just got that look about him. And I remember him showing interest, as did Hugh Jackman. Which I love Hugh Jackman, but he's not British.
No.
And he's Wolverine.
Yeah, I think if you become associated with the franchise, like you kind of lose that edge.
Yeah. I think they had the same. If I remember rightly, they were on the same audition day.
Really?
Yeah.
That would be a good day to be a casting director.
But when you've got someone like Bond, realistically, you can't make a bad choice because you'll have so much interest from like genuinely really good actors. The only time you'll make a bad choice is if you pick Harry Styles. But
well, nothing's set in stone yet, Callum.
No, probably will be though, just to fucking piss me off. But
and you know what would be the absolute kick in the bollocks for you as well, or the rope in the bollocks if we're staying on Bond tropes. It will be an incredible Bond film as well, and you'll hate
possibly.
You'll be like, fuck's sake, this is the best one, and I can't even fucking enjoy it.
I'd rather watch Space Jam Legacy.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
I can see it not happening for not a good reason at all, but a lot of people kicked off in oh my god, pretty sure it's Skyfall. No, it's not Skyfall. The one when it's insinuated that he's bisexual.
That's Skyfall.
Yeah,
it's not insinuated at all. Like Javier Bardem kind of just like runs his hand across his collar and he's like, "Oh, well, what makes you think this is my first time?"
Yeah, but that's all it is. That's where I was going with it. And there was such a fucking people kicking off about it. It's not that big of a deal. And realistically, as a spy trying to get information from people, he probably has slept with men.
Probably.
It's not really a big deal,
really, isn't it?
But that's what I mean. Like, there was so many people that kicked off about that specific scene. They're never going to accept Harry Styles.
Well, too pretty.
He's not. I wouldn't say pretty, but he's not Bond, and it's very hard to explain what I mean from it without it sounding like.
Has there ever been a female? Like, there's always like a villain of the piece. There's a Goldfinger or a Blofeld or whatever. Has there ever been a female villain to a Bond film?
I mean, you've got like Onatopp,
and I'm not talking
stuff.
sort of like your general sort of like henchman or whatever.
That's what I mean. Like that's what Onatopp would be. She'd be henchman.
There's like what's her face? Fucking from The World Is Not Enough, I think. With the woman, she's got what's the term called when you fall in love with your captor and you've been kidnapped?
Stockholm
syndrome. Yeah, like I can't remember her name now. Electra, I think. Electra King, that's it. But it's the one where Robert Carlyle is technically the bad guy.
I was going to say he's the bad guy in that.
But it's kind of her because she's got Stockholm syndrome, but she's kind of manipulating him. So even if you killed off Robert Carlyle's bad guy, she'd still be pulling the strings. But I don't think we've just had like a Jaws, sort of like henchman that's like like a big female that just comes in and just twats him or whatever. And we haven't really had like a female mastermind villain either.
Not really. I mean, no, like they are kind of, even with Tomorrow Never Dies, it's more, even though she's pulling the strings, Robert Carlyle's the villain.
World Is Not Enough.
World Is Not Enough, sorry. He's the villain of the piece. And I know it, because it doesn't go, you go, oh, Darth Vader's he's the bad guy in it. And then you see the Emperor, and you go, fucking hell, this guy's fucking mental. Because you don't get that. I know that's very different villains, but like say if you kill Robert Carlyle off, you don't really feel that she's that big of a threat.
Well, I mean, think of it like this, right? Whoever he has to have the big scrap with to kill them, or the most elaborate fight, shall we say, to kill them, like in your old school ones, anyway. That's kind of who your main villain's going to be. They're the ones that are going to get sucked out an airlock, or they're going to get a giant big ball of stone dropped on him, or whatever. Whereas Electra, he just shoots her. Yeah. He just she's in a bedroom, she's warning Robert Carlyle, and he goes bang, it just kills her. And he's like, okay, well, she wasn't She wasn't in a mech suit or anything. She wasn't doing a big crazy virus or whatever.
She never has that feeling of, which to be fair could just be down to the campiness of the movies. But
then think if they went with, honestly I can't remember the actress's name, and I'm disappointed that I don't. But the new woman who's been cast as, well, she was 007 in No Time to Die. I would have rather that instead of them saying we'll do another hard reboot and we'll do whatever, just go, well, you've already got a 007, just call it 007.
Again, people kicked off.
What are they? This is the thing, right? With the bigots and the idiots, what are they more upset about? Is the fact that she's a woman or the fact that she's black?
Both, I imagine.
But that's the thing. You'd be like, well, don't
get me wrong. I didn't like her, but I didn't think she was a good actor. That's what I took away from it. Like the fact that she was black, and the fact she was a woman, it was not even a point. It's, if you want to have a female Bond, that's fine, because you're just having a female 007. It's just the title's all it is, and that's fine. But it needs to be someone that can carry the franchise.
I reckon, you know, the what's her name, Ana de Armas, the one who was like she was like
exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah,
like she was like
is Bond.
She wrecks all of those dudes, and she's like, "It's my first mission. This is welcome."
But she had that MCU vibe to her, where it's like it's a lovable scamp that can handle themselves. And
a lovable scamp who's a murderer. Yeah,
I mean you gotta take the murder out, but but she was like, I'd watch a whole franchise of her. She was very, very good, and in most ways, she was more Bond than Bond was in terms of what Bond should be, not should be, but what Bond's been portrayed as in the past, rather.
But if you think though, because then that way you could have, rather than it just being a general male Bond, womanizing, you could do all of that differently. So you could go, well, she's just got to sleep with she'd have a significantly easier job than any Bond would be.
I don't think they do that. I think they take that out.
Oh, do you reckon?
Yeah. She'd have a love interest, and she would seduce people, but it would be, here's my key card for the hotel, meet you there. While she's handing the card, she's pickpocketing the phone that they need to score all the information on, but she wouldn't go up to the room. Whereas Bond's like,
do you reckon?
No, I've got time to do both.
I'll shag you, and then in your completely unconscious,
then I'll shoot you.
I'll shoot you or put a pillow over your face, and then I'll take your key card for the lab or whatever.
Yeah,
then you could have a female supervillain, And I'm not saying, it's just Blofeld, but now it's a woman. But like, you could just have a new, like in what the fucking Incredibles 2, where it's like there's the switch in that where the sister, that's the villain, and she blames superheroes because of whatever. Like something like that, just sort of someone who's been wronged by her intelligence agency. He's trying to get.
I was trying to think of another example where they did it, but Zootopia with the sheep.
Oh yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, with the deputy mayor. Yeah. But just something like that. But I don't just think. I don't mean like, it's just Jaws, but it's a woman now.
No.
Oh, it's just Odd Job, but it's a woman now. You just go, well, no, you can just create a new character that just so happens to be a woman. Yeah. They could still be a nightmare. Like, look at the size of what's her fucking face, Gina Carraro.
Yeah. Like, she'd be a good henchman person.
Not anymore. But I don't know. I think a lot of people would probably like to see her get shot a few times in the face.
Well, Harry Styles is the person that gets shot.
But that's the thing. You get your, it's a media, it's like kind of the Tomorrow Never Dies kind of like, it's a villain. He's a media guy and he's trying to start a war so he can sell papers or whatever. Yeah. That's statistically, that's more than likely going to be a dude. So that way you could have her just kill a guy without everyone going like, oh, it's just a woman. It's just, of course, the men are blah, blah, blah. Like, in every fucking Bond film, it's always the men that are the problem. It's never a woman that's a problem. I mean, annoyingly, they've just been used as a sexual object, which is...
They have, which is, again, but that was the... Again, not saying it's right.
I know what you mean. It doesn't justify it, but it's a product of the times.
Yeah, that was Bond's things. All the men want to be him, and all the girls want to sleep with him. Or be with him, whatever the saying is. And I know that has been phased out over the years, especially with the Daniel Craig ones where they it's mostly set about that one relationship. I know, obviously, he does sleep with a couple of others, but
it was a good one though. Like,
and it worked.
You felt that, you felt that thing between him and Vesper, and then it's just him. Like, no woman could ever compare to that. So he's just like, I'll sleep with you, sure, but I don't really care if you get killed or whatever.
Yeah, it's just get his rocks off and get the mission done. That's all it is. Which I suppose is the same for all the Bonds. That's what they're all doing, really.
Yeah.
With the exception of who got married?
That was Lazenby.
Lazenby, yeah.
Was it?
I'm sure it's Lazenby. It is Lazenby because there's that thing to say that they are the same person because Roger Moore visits the grave.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But what I was going to say, no, I can see them doing it at some point, having a female Bond, and again, I'm all for it as long as we get somebody like the agent from No Time to Die, not the 007 that we got in that, because she just wasn't good. She might be a good actor in other things, but I didn't rate her in that at all. She was annoying.
I'm trying to think of I was watching something, Indiana Jones, the new Indiana Jones movie. There's a female lead that's in that. I won't say anything about the film because I know you haven't watched it yet. That's him, yeah. But she's sort of like a parallel to him to some degree. You know, she's kind of like him.
She's
but,
the one in the trailers, I assume, isn't she?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But she can very much handle herself, and you kind of feel that she can handle herself. Like she was someone that you'd be like, oh well, if you wanted to do like an Indiana Jones spin-off, like I think she could probably do quite a good job of doing that. Like going off on her own adventures or whatever. But then like there's like some of the women that have been in The Boys, where they've just been absolute fucking nut jobs.
Yeah.
Like I could see like some of them coming in and doing like like a good spy, because you need to be tough in order to do that kind of Bond level role. But you don't have to go, oh, it's Jane Bond. You just go, no, it's just, if this is 006.
It's Mary
or whatever.
Sue. She's got a 00 title, and she's got the same job as James Bond and the other
she's
agents.
just going off and doing other things.
Yeah.
It doesn't always just have to be around him. Although I say that, I'd be a complete hypocrite. And if they said, oh, from the world of James Bond, 006, I'd be like, oh, fuck off. If it's on 007, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that, but like, there's no. Again, they did it in a way in No Time to Die, where they just gave the title to another agent, and
that's another fine. Number, yeah,
and that's fine. It's no issue, and not necessarily one I would choose, but like somebody like, oh my god, Mystique, Jennifer Lawrence,
Rebecca Romaine.
No, Jennifer Lawrence. Like she's in like Red Sparrow and stuff as well, and she's far too big, and I don't think she would be a good female Bond, but that kind of caliber of person. But I don't know what the woman's name is, but the one that's in No Time to Die is.
I think it is Ana de Armas. I think it is.
She's excellent, like genuinely very good. And I said it at the time. I'm pretty sure I said it on the podcast when we did it, but I said it when we came out of the cinema. I was like, she was a better 007 than both the other 007s that were in the film. But yeah, so I've got no issues, and I know it doesn't come down to what we think, but I've got no qualms with whether Bond's black, whether it's a male, whether it's a female, as long as they're good. It's all I want. And there's something that hasn't been discussed up until now, really, is there's a lot of focus on who the Bond's going to be, but there isn't anything about who the villain's going to be. So, before we move on to the next thing, you can pick someone. Doesn't age and everything else is... I mean, they've got to be alive. But who do you think would make an excellent Bond villain, irrespective of whether it's an old-style Bond movie or a new-style Bond movie? Just
I don't know,
a good Bond villain.
Like, the guy who was in Spectre, who played like the head of MI5, he also played Moriarty in the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock. He's a really good bad guy. Like he's just sort of like just on the edge of kind of being like, well, I don't really trust this guy, even though he's just being like perfectly pleasant or whatever.
Yeah.
And the problem that they had with that was because they cast someone who just played, well, not just, but he's probably most best known for being Moriarty. You're like, well, he was just a bad guy, so now he's sort of like, oh, MI6 is useless, and MI5 will do the job, and it's like, are you just a bad guy? And then he was, and it's like, oh, that wasn't a spoiler. It wasn't as if they got like a Hugh Grant in or whatever, and then, oh my god, it was a turn, and he's not the good guy. Yeah. So someone like him, I thought, if he hadn't already done it and been thrown off a building, or thrown through a building, should I say? I think he would be a really good that's a good one. Bond villain. But again, if you're doing a recast, I think Pierce Brosnan's been asked if he wanted to come back and do a villain. I think at this point, I think he would be quite a good one, sort of like the big landowner kind of, oil tycoon.
I liked him. I thought he was the best bit of Black Adam. I know he's not a villain, but
he
was the best bit of the movie. But it won't happen, and I want to change it to somebody else, but I can't think of anyone else. So I'm going with Anthony Starr.
Yeah, he has been a good
in terms of just terrifying, like without really doing any. I don't think he's acting for a lot of it.
Well, do you think though that all stems from the fact that because he's Homelander and he's untouchable?
No, because he's like it in Banshee as well.
Oh, he just carries off. He
just seems to be because I mean he's the hero in Banshee, but it's like he still murders the shit out of people. He just seems unhinged.
Yeah. What about Dominic Cooper? I reckon he'd be pretty good.
From Preacher.
From Preacher and the SAS thing, like he's and Warcraft.
He'd be. I mean, but I like him as an actor. I think he'd be a good one. Same as like someone like David Tennant. I think David Tennant would be a good. Maybe not up there, but I think he'd be a good. Like I thought he was real good in Jessica Jones.
Yeah,
he was very good in that, and I think that could have been his first like villain portrayal.
Maybe
I don't know.
You could get like you could get one of the Skarsgårds. Like they're doing loads of like random things at the moment, and for the most part, I haven't seen one of them do a bad performance.
I mean,
like is it Alexander Skarsgård is the big one?
Yeah, he's a big name. Like he's in like It and stuff.
No. That's
was that the other one?
That's I don't know. That's not the one I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the one from the Norseman rather than the fellow who's in like John Wick and It.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the guy from John Wick and It. That's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I can't remember which way around they are, but that would also depend on the type of villain.
Yeah.
So if it's sort of like a behind the scenes, he's the one sort of like pulling the strings, and he's a Blofeldy kind of whatever. Then the guy from It, and like from John Wick. But if it's a like a gang leader, like a big, like like in
Gotham
Inspector with Dave Bautista when he comes in, he's like, I'm gonna just take over this guy's job or whatever, and he just kills him. Then the other one, then he'd be the more imposing actual threat rather than like I've been pulling the strings all along or whatever. Or both of them. That one is the henchman. The other one is the mastermind.
That works because you need that person who's like you've got your kind of like the master of the whole thing, but you've always got like that's the number two, and it's typically the big henchman person or henchwoman.
Or with the crazy ability or whatever.
Yeah. So whether it's like fucking Arnold Top or Jaws or whoever, like that'd work, and I think they'd be very good actually. I wouldn't have thought of them.
Little family team up, maybe. Yeah.
But I think a lot of the times the villains are sometimes more interesting than whoever is going to play Bond. Like, I'd be really honest. Annoyed if we get Styles and then we get them two as the villains. What a fucking waste!
I think it's more like it depends on like whether they're going like because obviously the older films didn't really have much ties to each other, whereas like and to be fair, the Craig ones didn't really either. Like you'd have your reoccurring characters or whatever, but there was never like, oh my god, remember that thing that in 2 films ago that we did? Well, now it's coming back to haunt us.
I think it's more just implied, isn't it? that happened, and then the next one happens, and the stuff that's already happened is still part of the thing. Like, with the exception of the end of Casino is meant to tie directly into Quantum of Solace.
Well, it is, yeah.
But like this Sunday Movies, yet again, they pointed out that he's got a completely different suit on.
Well, maybe he's just got a car that can change his suits.
But that's what I mean. So whilst they don't reference it, it's like previously on James Bond.
Previously on James Bond's previous suit.
Yeah. No. But I mean, it doesn't directly reference Casino Royale, but it's like 15 minutes after, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's like he's literally in the boot after he's just shot him in the knee. Yeah. Like those whole films, though, like that's building up to Spectre, and then No Time to Die is kind of the first one that doesn't really tie into that as much, because like the other ones, like it's Blofeld and Le Chiffre and Silver and everyone has been tied up in his big master plan.
Yeah,
and then No Time to Die was like a new thing after that, and then they killed him. So even if you wanted to, you couldn't go, oh, it's just the same Bond. No, it's not. There was a direct cruise missile strike on that island. He's 100% dead.
He had that tie on that could change your suits and stuff, and it turned into he could just absorb all the
Q branch from the future came back in time and zapped him through, and then it's James Bond 2099 or whatever.
We gotta get that.
Right.
If we're not getting James Bond Jr., we're getting James Bond Future.
Yeah, it's in his nanotech armor or whatever. And he's got to fight Blofeld on his death mecha Blofeld giant cat robot.
I mean, give it to Adi Sankar, who did Captain Laserhawk and stuff, and I'd probably watch that done. Because that would be amazing. It's like James Bond with his fucking cyber enhanced cheetah and like.
Yeah, well, he's got a nano suit that incorporates every gadget that we've seen so far. He's got a laser. He can breathe underwater. He can make a crocodile that comes out of his face, so he can. That's one of the Sean Connery ones. I think he's got like a rubber crocodile head on. He's got a jetpack and all that sort of stuff, and he can pour martinis at will.
That's a given. No point having all the rest if you can't do that. Take the gun out of it, make sure there's a drinks dispenser in there. But
he wouldn't even need a gun, would he? He'd just be like a T-1000
not with,
just
not
sort
with
of
that suit,
create knives and just stab people to death.
It'd just be like, we need this this key that it's in the bottom of the ocean in this secret underground. Well, it is underground.
Go Bond magnet.
He just goes,
got it.
Can I not just use the suit? And then he turns his finger into the key, and he's like, done. And it's just credits go.
But that's exactly my point, though. It's like all the sort of like the intricacies. There's some really good. I think it's either on Variety or GQ maybe, but there's some really good YouTube videos with someone who used to be like the head of CIA, like operatives or something like that, or like she was basically like chief like disguise maker.
Right.
So it's kind of like actual Q branch for for spies in the sort of 60s and 70s or whatever. And obviously there's not lasers and whatever, or at least not that they confirm. But it was like wigs, and it was quick change outfits, and there was like things that had like things hidden within them. So it was like, it was a button that was a compass, but there was also a thing that came out of it. So there was like a bunch of stuff like that. But when you give someone, we've got this brand new nano glove, and it can scan every scanner, and it can pick every lock, and it's got a laser in this finger, and it's Viagra in this one, in case you're suffering. You get whipped in the bollocks too many times, and you can't get it up, so you can just go, and then bang, there you go, back to spy work. But I don't want that. I don't want like the every glove. Like even in remember in Mass Effect where they just had Omnigel that you could just break it into a lock, you can use it to blow stuff up, you can do whatever you want with it, and then they just went, it's too easy, just having like a universal thing that can just fix every problem.
That's the problem with that kind of stuff, and that was one of the worst things about Iron Man in the MCU, and as it progressed, it went from being a cool suit to just being a thing that can do everything, and that kind of works for Tony Stark, I guess, but for Bond...
It makes sense, because otherwise he's got one nano suit that can do everything, or he's got 500 suits that go, right, well, this one can lift really heavy things, this one can swim underwater, this one can do this one can do this. But like, I like the idea that like in a Bond film, instead of, we've got 20 minutes before the computer cycle ends and, the satellite picks up and blah, 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 to oh shit, I tripped over and I dropped the thing in the water.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't got another one, so we've just got to improvise. Like,
and that
works.
Is... I like that.
Yeah, I kind of prefer that, where it's just, rather than just having a one thing fixes all.
It's that believable nature, though, and a lot of people complained that Craig had very few gadgets, but...
I agree, like, there wasn't enough... and, like, even, like, the Brosnan gadgets weren't... They weren't crazy. Again, it wasn't like, you know, you had to... I mean, he had again, the more films that went on, the sort of the weirder they got. Yeah. But, you know, like a cloaking device for your car, that... For a spy, that kind of seems perfect.
It does, but again, it's takes out all the... You don't have to do anything. And I know they exist within mirrors. Like, you can get...
Yeah, for sure.
There is cars that have got it.
There should be limitations to that. You can't just have this car can just turn perfectly invisible. No. You'd be like, well, you can kind of... It can camouflage very well. So if you're on a flat surface like snow, if you're by a bush, it can mirror that and that's fine. But as soon as you move, it's going to just stop working.
Yeah.
As soon as, you know, it's only got a specific amount of time because it's killing the car battery. You leave it on for 10 minutes, but your car's not going to start.
Yeah. You can literally use it for, like, hold up as they drive past because they can't see you. And then it's off now because, like I said,
because otherwise, just turn it on and just don't turn it off.
Yeah.
Surely you wouldn't want to be seen at all. You're a spy, right?
That's the kind of gadget. Because why doesn't he go, well, you don't just make me a suit, like a cloak? I could put it on my head.
If you can make a car that can cloak, you can just give me like remember in Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 4, I think it is, where they have to use that thing to go down a hallway.
Yeah, the Kremlin.
Yeah. So they're breaking into the Kremlin, and they've got this ridiculous screen, and it's this thing that tracks this guy's eye movement, but. It's a great little gadget, but then as soon as someone else comes in, it falls apart because it can't deal with it. Like, it's a great gadget that's not impervious to every potential situation. Whereas if it was like a nano wall, well, it would just be that, but it would just keep on moving forward and moving forward. But the perspective would change, and there's no getting around it. There's no problem. Yeah, like I like a gadget that's way too advanced that will fall apart immediately because. You introduce one variable that they weren't expecting or something like that.
That's typically the thing for Mission Impossible, though, where they will go, here's this really cool fucking thing that's just going to make the mission dead easy. Nah, it's broke. Like, you're going to have to...
Here's some gloves that will stick you to the side of the... Oh, that one doesn't work anymore.
But that's why I really like
it
Mission
adds
Impossible
tension.
films. Yeah, without that, I'm not saying they'd be bad films, but that tension makes a lot of the movie. And... With Bond, what I liked about the Craig ones, I mean, in Casino, he's got the defib in the car. That seems quite a realistic thing. Like, people have first aid kits in their cars, so it's not unrealistic for a spy to have a defib in there. That's fine. And
you punch someone so hard that their heart stopped, and you need to get them back to base to whatever. We'll just restart their heart and bang off you go.
I mean, it's unrealistic the fact that he nearly did it all himself, but
like the fact that the leads can come out, that's a stupid idea. Yeah. What a terrible design flaw. But presumably, these weren't designed to be an operative using this on himself. It would be he'd be using it to save someone or whatever.
Exactly. But again, it adds that tension to it, and you the viewer is like, holy shit, he might die.
Yeah.
Obviously, spoiler for Casino Royale, he doesn't. But
20 years old now, yeah.
But again, like I say, that's why I like the Mission Impossible movies, because whilst they do have ridiculous technology to do these kind of missions, 98% of them fail before they can use it, and they have
to print a new face-off. Oh, the machine's broken.
Yeah.
Well, okay, now we can't break in the way that we wanted to. We've got to improvise and think about a new strategy. Brilliant.
And because it isn't that perfect plan, the odds are something's going to go wrong, which leads to more tension and more good action scenes more than anything else. But yeah, enough about that though, Dan, because the Madam Web trailer was out today.
Yeah.
Sony Pictures released the first trailer, and I'll be honest, it looks like a live-action Spider-Man movie.
Kinda.
Ish. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think we're going to be getting Spider-Verse levels of quality.
No. But one thing that is the biggest question that I've got is this Madam Web. Also, I thought that Madam Web existed outside of time, has just always been there.
No, well, no, because she creates the I forgot what it's called now. The web, not the web, the internet. She made the internet.
No, no way.
Because she's also in a wheelchair. She doesn't seem to be in a wheelchair in this.
That's what I mean, and she's dead old.
Yeah, but again, we don't know when particularly this is set. I'm assuming it's reasonably present day because it looks like they've got modern technology.
Yeah. So is this the same Madam Web that would be within all of the Spider-Mans ever?
I would assume so.
So it's an origin story for someone who's barely a background character.
Yeah, I mean, no, like Madam Web plays a big part in a lot of the big Spider-Man stories.
No, I don't mean in the comics because again, like no one. Yeah, but like we've not really seen anything of the sort of it's like the Web of Time or whatever it's called. But we've seen sort of like, in Spider-Verse, obviously we've seen it quite a bit where they're sort of like falling through a thing and it's just webs everywhere. Presumably that's what that's alluding to. But does that mean that she's then in control? So she's now the multi-dimension. So instead of it being like a Doctor Strange, I can just portal to any dimension or whatever. She's now the same thing for that Sonyverse instead, maybe?
There was a big thing for which, to be fair, does lead into one of the characters that's shown up in this. But Ezekiel, who's in this, he's got the same powers as Spider-Man without the webs. He's got we've seen him jumping around a bit, but there's no swinging. Yeah. But he's never wore a Spider-Man suit before, so that's new to this. Might not even be him. I assume it is him though. But he gets his powers from like a spider totem, and I wouldn't say he's a bad guy. I'd say he's mostly a good guy. But he spends a lot of time finding other spider totems, so people with spider powers, and warning them because you've got like these fucking vampire-y people. And that's what she ends up doing. So I assume she's going to, for the most of this film, she's going to go, this guy's a fucking villain. We're going to stop him. But it's going to turn out they're going to have to work together. That's what I assume. Okay. I think Dakota Johnson's a reasonably good choice to lead the movie. And I found out after this, whilst originally this was being written by everyone's favourite Morbius screenwriters, that's since not the case, and it's the person that penned Jessica Jones, season 1. Okay. So now I feel a little bit better.
It stands a chance, yeah.
I think in terms of the Sony Marvel universe, this looks to be the best one. However, I remember saying the same thing when we got that first view of Venom. There was nothing else. It was just him when he's holding that guy up in the alleyway. I was like, that looks like a good Venom. This could be the one. It was not the one, Dan.
But he still looks good.
Yeah, visually, I think he's a good take on Venom.
Well, we saw because do you know who these 4 girls are that she's found? Because one of them puts on I can't remember the name of the exact Spider Woman that it is, but she's got it's like a sort of like a black and gold suit. She's got the big afro. I can't remember which. I think it's just Spider Woman, and just some dimensional version of her.
And I assume we're probably going to get Silk in there as well, but I couldn't tell. I did watch it on my phone as well, so some of it is I might need to watch again. But all of the costumes looked familiar, so at least they could be comic accurate at least. But I do need.
Do you reckon that those are all Spider Women then? To some.
I'm going to assume that, like I was saying with the totems, these are all going to have some form of spider powers.
So do you reckon? Because like the whole thing in like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was like what's his name? Oscar Isaac's Vampire Spider.
Miguel O'Hara.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
got there in the end.
He was obviously like finding other people across the Spider-Verse. Like, do you reckon that she's going to be doing that same thing? So she's going to be finding like the live action Spider people. So not like your Maguires and your
upcomers,
your Garfields or whatever, or not even upcomers. Just sort of like here's a different Spider person. Here's a different one. Here's a different one. Here's a different one. Maybe there will be some like, they'll get fucking Danny Glover to come back and just be like, yeah, you can just be in another box. And be like, yeah, they caught me again. Like just like a thing like that, which connects like the Spider-Verse thing and then this Madam Web thing. Like, do you reckon that they're going to be the same?
I mean, potentially. I've got a feeling with these particular this group that because they're leaning very heavily into this clairvoyant power, like ability that she's got, and I'm pretty sure she can't see directly into the future. But she can pertain to events that might happen. And in this, I've got a feeling that these haven't got spider powers yet, but she knows that they're going to get them.
But then that would tie into the Miguel's thing of like, if there are people within each universe that have to become a spider person, and if they don't, the universe collapses.
Yeah.
So do you reckon that she's just like a witness to someone getting a spider power, or do you reckon that she will be like what's the thing, like the central point, like connecting whole spider universe or whatever? So like she's always there, she's always has to be a part of. I don't know. I don't know what they do with it necessarily.
That's what they did in like the old 90s cartoon. There's a fucking hell. It felt like about 40 episodes, like the saga did of like the Madam Web story. And in that, she was saying that she's connected to every person who gets spider powers. Is connected to her, and it's all connected via the web because she had that big web thrown and everything else.
Yeah, I remember the web thrown.
She was also blind.
Yeah.
She had the big, massive sunglasses.
Yeah, you could just blind her in this at the end. She's.
Yeah, I mean, obviously something's going to happen because she's walking around in this and she's in a wheelchair in the cartoon and the comics. So she might also go blind as well. Might be a real bad day. Like,
but she just has one bad fight, or
could be anything. I mean, it could even be down to a lot of this is. No, that wouldn't work. I was going to say maybe a lot of it's happening, and stuff's already happened, and she's replaying things to see what could have happened differently.
Okay,
but that wouldn't that'd be a real confusing movie.
So, but is she? Because obviously, that one person can't be in every particular universe. So, are we saying that she exists? So she's seeing through her own eyes in like a different universe. So it's like she's seeing her own body with someone else interacting with another.
In this, it looks like she's in that world and they're all in it together. That's what it looks like.
But that's what I mean. Does that mean? But then that means that either she's pulling them through a dimension or whatever, or a different timeline, or she's just happening to interact with 4 people within the same universe and timeline.
Yeah.
That maybe all of them get spider powers with another person who's already a spider person.
Who's already got it.
Which seems odd, which means that's what I mean. Like, would she be like body jumping between universes and she's sort of like remembering all of her memories?
That's a potential one. That would work if they did it that way.
I'm definitely more interested to go, right, let's get some more spider people on screen at the same time. Like, it worked great in No Way Home, like Across the Spider-Verse and Enter the Spider-Verse has obviously had multiple spider people, and that's all been received really, really well. Like, the weirder, the wackier, the better. So, but it does seem that, like, one of them, I don't know which one it is, has got the iron spider arms in their costume.
Look, but again, that's a similar thing to... So, there's a handful of other spider people that have got the arms.
But does that... If they're tying it all together, though, does that mean that they've seen Tom Holland's Spider-Man with his iron spider suit and gone, I can build some spider arms as well, that'd be good? Or is it just by complete coincidence that it's someone else with engineering abilities who's managed to make
Potentially,
arms?
It could just be that particular iteration where they've gone, this person is the Spider-Man and Tony Stark of that universe, and they've made it that way. Like, Superior Spider-Man, obviously he doesn't exist in the MCU or the Sony universe, but Superior Spider-Man is... I mean, he's my favorite, but I don't want him to.
Because it's Dark Arc.
Yeah, because it's cool. Like I mean, the way it happens is ridiculous, but as a Spider-Man, he does a good job, and it's a good character arc for Octavius. But obviously, the reason he has it is because of his octopus arms, and it's a better version of the Iron Spider.
Doesn't Doppelganger have 8 arms as well? Well, 8 limbs.
8 limbs, yeah. Because then you got like Man Spider as well. He's also got.
Yeah.
Because I mean, technically, he has anyway.
It's one of the clones, wasn't it? Like from the Clone Saga.
Riley. He ends up getting extra limbs.
Yeah, you're probably right. But that's what I mean. Get some people with 4 arms. Like, get the Sony Spider-Man. Do that in live action if you want to.
They do appear to be doing this is your female Spider cast. That's what it seems to be from the trailers, where you've got Madam Web and then you've got your team of Spider Misfits, and then this random, supposedly evil Spider-Man jumping around doing stuff.
But I'd say get your fucking. You remember the Doc Ock from Enter the Spider-Verse, Livia Octavia. What? She's one of the best ones.
Full on Ghostbusters it and just replace everyone.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, I like her. I think she was a good because she was still Doc Ock.
Yeah, like she was still a fucking maniac.
Yeah,
but like those arms, like those like woodly like silicon arms or whatever.
I don't know how that would work in live action.
I'd say it would work better than like mechanical arms.
You reckon? I think it'd look a bit
I think so. No, I think because like if they're malleable, if you can like move them and use them as hands rather than just big pointy claws that you can just sort of stab people with, like if they're something that you can use to control and manipulate items with.
Suppose.
It seems more like then it would be like a scientific instrument, like something to help with science rather than just I built this to kill people.
Does that mean like they could do because in the like you were saying for the whether she's on this, whether she's here or what. That would be a good way of bringing someone like because what was her name? What was Doc Ock's name in it?
Liv.
Liv.
Olivia.
Yeah. You could bring someone into it if it is going to be jumping through universes. She finds a way across. But because like Madam Web, she can do that astral plane, I think, where she can like project herself elsewhere. So if she is tampering with pulling people spider totems from other worlds, nothing to say that villains don't get through as well, and it would be an interesting one to do. But I do think the metal arms are dead imposing, like scarily so, rather than the weird jelly looking.
But if you think of it like so say if she's working for an Octavius or like that particular spider person, and like she's seen the designs of this is how those mechanical arms work, and they are actually quite useful. Before they turn into a maniac, they were dead useful for like extra tasks and whatever. I'll build my own spider ones, and then I've got my own spider suit rather than it just being, oh, there's a Spider-Man. It's got 8 arms because of the mechanic. I'll do that as well, like because then it's based on a villain that they've worked for or with, rather than they've gone. I got the shit kicked out of me by that Dr. Octopus. But if I had 4 of my own arms that could occupy those 4 arms, then I could just punch them in the face. Yeah.
And that makes sense. Makes sense. Because that was a thing for like MCU, Tom Holland, Iron Spider outfit, which I still don't think is the Iron Spider outfit, but that outfit. There was no reason to put the arms in.
No. It wasn't like there was he needed extra support or help to do a thing. It was just people would go, oh, no way, that's that thing from that thing that I like. Yeah.
I mean, the way that he used it did make sense because obviously he was lifting, he lifted a car up and then helped them out with his 2 hands. But he could also hold it up with 1 hand and get them. But
you've got extra room. If someone's trying to punch you at the same time as well, you've got no arms left.
Yeah. And it pays off because, like, again, in like Endgame, when no, is it in Endgame when he goes into, he finally turns on is it death?
Oh, insta kill,
and he's just like
stabbing them all.
Yeah. Because it's fine because it's aliens.
Yeah, they don't count. It's not murder then, is it?
But yeah, I mean, it looks. But I do need to watch the trailer because, like I say, I just watched it. You sent me a message says a Madam Web trailer, so I was just like, meh. Wasn't overly fussed, and then I finished it, and I was like,
I'm more excited for that than I would be for Craven.
100%, yeah.
And for a Morbius 2 and a Venom 3 or whatever else. This one I'm just sort of like, oh, maybe the potential for new unknown spider people. Yeah. That would be an interesting thing. But that's not to say that this is going to be the Sonyverse Avengers film.
No, nowhere near. It's an odd one to have. Like, I would have introduced Madam Web as a secondary character to another person's film lead on to it that way, because there's a lot.
Presumably from something like Spider-Verse, where Miles bumps into her or something like that, or she's just like, "You shouldn't be here." Blah 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 blah.
There's a very big possibility it's going to be dog shit because it's made by the same people that made every other Marvel Sony film. But just from the one trailer we've had, I'm not overly happy with it. Like I say, like they seem to have given Ezekiel like precognitive powers, and he's got a spider sense, but he can't see the future. It works exactly the same as Spider-Man's. So if someone's going to hit him from behind, it'll sense it and he can dodge. But this seems to be there saying that he can see the future.
That could just be the way that the trailer's edited.
That's what I mean. Hopefully, they're just going, because she's seeing things, and then obviously she's going back to prevent that from happening to try and change. I assume she's going, he avoided that hit, so he must have the same abilities I've got. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Made him a lot younger as well. He was like a much older gentleman in the comics, but could be fine. Obviously, we'll wait out till there's more. But in terms of news, Dan, that's all I've got. What If season 2?
Sure. I'll tell you what, Callum. We'll talk about it when it comes out.
Next month.
It's not really worth going into. Like, again, I don't really. It was kind of the beginning of the end for a lot of their sort of MCU stuff at the moment. I was just sort of like, oh, that was way more disappointed than I thought I was going to be. It's not to say that it was bad, but it's just that they kind of had free reign to go, what if they just did this? What if this person exploded? What if the planet was never born? What would happen then? They just had like a free reign to kind of just do whatever, and they just. It's like they're trying to create another little universe within its own universe that if they wanted to, they could pull stuff from. And it's just like, no, just that's your one thing to be like, well, what if Bruce Banner, he did his gamma experiment and it killed him? Because obviously it would have done. Well, then you didn't have a Hulk. Well, then you still got your Avengers. Oh, no, but there's no Hulk to do whatever. Like, you just take one little element out and then see what branches out from it. And other than them replacing...
to the MCU, that's the problem.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They shouldn't have just kept. They should have just kept it as its own separate. It's like, here's a character, Winter Soldier, but he was killed when he fell off that train in Captain America. So the Winter Soldier was never born. Was never created. But Natasha, she was taken from her Black Widow training. She was turned into the Winter Soldier instead. And then Captain America has to fight Black Widow and blah 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 blah. Yeah. Like, just create an entirely new narrative out of it rather than just something. And I never really got the sense that it was anything super weird, like other than like Vision just cutting Thanos in half and like T'Challa being Star-Lord and like taking him in as a Guardian or whatever. Like, that's great. Like, that's more of that. Like, where it's just sort of like, instead of it being this person, it's this person. And how does that change the world?
But even that was too, like, that was one of the better episodes. Like, the Marvel Zombie one was good. But then like Ultron going on after the Keeper and stuff, and it's just like, other than it being other than it being like quite nicely animated, I didn't think a lot of most of the episodes. But I think if they'd have just gone like nothing to do with the MCU, there's going to have some of the characters are going to be the same because you've got Captain America, you've got Iron Man and stuff. But get more Spider-Man stuff in there, get Punisher stuff in there, get the X-Men in there, because it doesn't matter because none of it's connected to anything. And they could have done so much with it, and they didn't.
What if the Fantastic Four had gotten together to save New York instead of the Avengers?
Yeah. What if Loki won?
Yeah. And it should just be its own self-contained little episode of just sort of like, it doesn't tie into anything else. It's just the same events that you've already seen from, like, you just go, sure, we'll just do one from every big movie, one from the original Avengers, one from Age of Ultron, one from Endgame, whatever. But we'll just change an element, and how would that have played out if that had happened?
Yeah, that'd be way better.
Yeah, so I'm not super... I'm going to watch it, obviously, and especially with them doing one a day. I love that.
This 9 days, every day for 9 days is a much better thing than going, well, I suppose I'll wait till next Friday and try and remember to watch it. Better. And I think I like it more, and like we said before, we're going to go back and watch season 1 again.
definitely,
in one go, and it
maybe that
might enjoy it more.
Yeah.
I might do rather than do it one go. I might do one a day.
Oh, so you can kind of if you do it one a day, and then the next day is the first episode of this. Then you could just watch them all in one big stream and see if that makes any difference.
Now I've got 18 episodes to watch.
Exactly, that sounds way better than 9.
But let's say we'll give it a go. Say I've seen worse shows.
It's not. Yeah, it's by all means, it is not the worst thing that they've made, and it wasn't that I didn't. I think it's probably my own fault. Like I thought that. Oh, this is going to be... Well, what if the Punisher was Captain America instead of Captain America, and the Avengers, they're all a bunch of fucking psychopaths instead.
That's what it should have been.
But that's what I wanted it to be, and that's not what it was. So that's my own fault for expecting too much of it.
Because that's what the comics was. In the comics, we didn't go, oh man, I've just watched the brand new Iron Man 1 movie. Oh man, I wonder if this thing happened. Like, how would that have played out? Oh, look, it's a comic of that. No, it's none of that shit. It was just, oh man, imagine if Peter Parker was the Punisher, but he had Spider-Man's powers. We'll do that. Oh, imagine if fucking Wolverine just went on a fucking rampage and just slaughtered everyone. Yeah, let's do that. Because it doesn't matter. Because the reason they did it in the comics, I know a lot of the time it was because it was a lull and they haven't got a lot going on, and it's a nice, cheap, easy way to boost your sales. But yeah, just do that. Captain America's just decided, fuck it, and I'm going to work for Hydra now. Fuck it, I'll do that. I know that one didn't happen, but just something that you can do it because it doesn't matter, because there's no repercussions, because it's not, oh, that contradicts this, and if you do that, then this can't be, because it doesn't matter, because it's a one and done story. And that's all it had to be, and they could have done they could have used Ghost Rider, Red Hulk, Blade, X-Men, the Y-Men. They could have used everyone.
But if you with one of the things that was in this trailer was like everyone had like their own little. You said Mario Kart, which is kind of it seems to be that same thing. So it looks like instead of it being like the Conquest of Champions, I assume is probably what it's going to be. Or Contest of Champions, sorry. But like in
the mobile game.
No, that's Conquest, yeah. In Ragnarok, where they have the big fighting arena, and so instead of them going, oh, it's a big punch up, instead it's like it's a cool race. So like you've got Valkyrie's there, and she's got like her ship, but it's a car, and then like the Grandmaster, he's got his own car, and then Thor would have his own car. So it's like, what if in Ragnarok, instead of having a big old punch up, it was just a big race instead?
Gamora was also there though.
Yes, she was.
Maybe that's Endgame. Rev game.
But that's like if Thanos said, how about instead of having a big war, how about we just have a big Twisted Metal style race instead?
Yeah,
and we just
Carmageddon it.
Yeah, and they go, well, whoever wins, that's who wins.
Yeah.
I'd be like, that's stupid enough to be one of these, so yeah, let's do it.
But that's what I mean, like visually, animation wise, it looked quite cool. It looked very Mad Maxy kind of vibe to it. But if it's just pointless and stupid, yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah. Because that's what it should be. I don't want these things that just make you go, oh yeah, that's that bit in the Guardians movie.
Especially, I mean, I know I don't want to labour the point, but especially that now that you've got this is owned by Disney, as is most other sort of things. So you go, well, what if instead of there's Tony Stark and there's Nebula and they're on the Milano and they're deep in space after Infinity War. So what if instead of Captain Marvel, who finds them, Buzz Lightyear does?
Anyone? Darth Vader. They could do anything because it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't ruin any other franchises. It doesn't change the stories of anything else because it's a 11-minute animated story that's not connected.
You could kill them all off, and then they're all back in the next episode because they're doing a different thing instead.
Yeah. When my friend was asking me about before What If started season 1, he was asking me, and that's essentially how I explained it to him. He was very disappointed afterwards, but
yeah,
but that's what it should be because, like we say, it doesn't matter. It's just me and you telling a story of, oh man, this is if Wolverine and the Punisher had a team up. This is what could happen. blah 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 blah. Because that's all it is. The only difference being it's animated a lot better than we could do.
Yeah, but with their their extra content that they've made since the last season, so we've got She-Hulk and Loki and Daredevil's obviously coming back and that kind of stuff. Do you reckon that that's going to factor more into it now?
Oh.
So we'll see a Daredevil this time, whereas we didn't before.
Could be that could have been She-Hulk, not Gamora.
No, it would have been good. It's a space thing. It's going to be.
Probably was Gamora.
I'm pretty sure she had the lines. So
honestly, can't remember. I just remember seeing a green woman because it the camera went stopped very briefly and then went to the next one.
No, I think you're probably right. Yeah,
but it's most likely Gamora. But I mean, I assume they're going to include She-Hulk and that in there. Maybe not the Marvels and stuff because that's only just come out. Maybe like they might keep Miss Marvel in it. Maybe
Miss Marvel would be a good one. Yeah.
Maybe Moon Knight. What if he wasn't mental?
Well, then you don't get Moon Knight, do you?
Yeah, it's just a whole episode of him just doing his shopping, going to the gym, going to work.
There's just so many things. We're just like, well, what if that in Guardians, like the first Guardians, when the Collector's assistant grabs the Infinity Stone, what if she doesn't explode? What if she gets it?
Yeah.
Then she's like, bang, Collector destroyed. Release all these things. One of those is Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
And then he decides to get revenge on the universe, and then it's Avengers versus Howard the Duck and all his mates.
Could happen.
Right.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's the sort of silly things that you can get away with when you just go in and then reset.
Yeah, because the second the credits go up, it's over. It's done. You haven't got to answer.
Maybe that's the thing, because your casual watchers, which are that's ultimately what they're going to be appealing to. It's going to be people who know Chris Evans, they know Robert Downey Jr., they know the main MCU things.
You can still keep it to them though, but do those.
But
kind of silly
that's
stories.
the thing. They want to keep, because if they go, well, but I was watching that cartoon, but he came back and then he was in a car and then he died in a thing, but then he was in that thing. Like, they're just not going to understand that this is a separate.
Don't make it then. Simple as that.
Well, that's a good enough answer. Maybe we should have just knocked this whole thing on the head after Endgame. That should have been it.
No, but just don't call it What If. Then call it. Here's a series of short stories that may or may not happen, dependent on how familiar you are with the MCU.
Yeah, because it should
doesn't
have just
roll
been
off
like
the tongue, but
the Rick and Morty interdimensional cable, but of all the Marvel stories ever.
Oh, that's such a better way of putting it. But again, if you haven't watched Rick and Morty, you wouldn't know what that was either.
Yeah,
but
again, have Rick and Morty find a Tony Stark in space.
Yeah,
there's a whole series of Rick and Morty tied up in that. Speaking of, have you seen any of season 7 yet?
No, because I've fallen behind on it. I'm going to wait because I think there's only 3 left.
3? Oh wow, I've only watched the first 3. I think
I could be wrong on that specific number, but I'm at least 5 weeks behind. So I'm just going to wait and then just watch them all in one go, which I never normally do. It's normally the other way around, and I watch them once a week, and then you just go tell me when it's fucking finished, and I'll watch them all.
Because I'm pretty sure the first 3 seasons of Rick and Morty, they were already out before someone convinced me to finally watch it, and then I was like, oh, this is really good, actually.
Well, the first time I watched Rick and Morty was I started watching Gravity Falls, and while I was on the website, it was recommended. I was looking for shows for Logan when he was a lot younger, and it was Amazing World of Gumball, Gravity Falls, Rick and Morty, something else, and then I put Rick and Morty on, and it was the pilot episode, and it's when Morty's asleep in class, and I forgot the teacher's name, but the black guy, the teacher in the yellow,
Mr. Goldenfold.
He's there. He's trying to wake him up, and then Morty's just got his hands up and he's like groping his.
Yeah.
So he's just like, "It's not my fault. This is happening." And I was like, "Wait a minute, this doesn't seem appropriate for 2-year-olds."
I mean, it's on Adult Swim. What do you fucking expect?
Oh no, because I think I got it off a naughty site. I just downloaded. I just got a few episodes to see if it was okay, and I was like, "That seems a bit. What's it?" And then the next thing was Rick coming in. And I was like, he seems pretty drunk.
Yeah.
So I turned it off and watched it on my own later. And I was like, this is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But there was only like 2 seasons then. There wasn't many out. But yeah, for this one, I've just fallen behind, same as what we do in the Shadows. I fully intended to start watching the new season last week, and Zoe then informed me that she can't remember finishing the last season. I'm like, well, I definitely did. But I went to a random episode, read the synopsis. She's like, I don't remember that one. Next one, don't remember that one. Don't remember that stuff. Let me just fucking watch this then. So I'm watching a season of What We Do in the Shadows that I've already watched, so I can watch the new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question though, Dan, no, I have not watched any of the new seasons of Rick and Morty.
Well, I think like I say, I only watched the first. Actually, no. Do you know what? I think it was just the first two.
I remember you saying the second one was better.
Yeah, it was way better. The first one, I was just sort of like, oh, this feels like they've skipped a beat here or something, or they've just missed something. It just doesn't feel very. Yeah. It just doesn't feel the same. And then the second one, I was like, oh, this seems way more familiar. Like this is a bit more like it. This is what I'm used to. But I know my mate messaged me. That's just what's reminded me in my head. She was like, because she was the one who reminded me to watch it, and then I watched it. And I was like, oh, I wasn't super into this. And she was like, no, the second one's way better though. And I watched it. I was like, oh yeah, it is. And she's like, I wouldn't get too concerned about the third one because it's kind of like more like the first one. I was like, oh no.
For God's sake. What's the voices like is the big question.
Honestly, really not that different. Nah. Like there's a few sort of like cadences that just aren't quite there. But it's you sink into it really. It's not super noticeable. You just roll with it. Like the Morty one's almost perfect, I'd say.
Yeah, it's from when they released the trailer that finally showed you the voice, because that's what worried me the most. The footage they were showing for the new season, they didn't talk. I was like, this isn't good. And then they finally did, and Morty's pretty much like beat for beat the same. Rick, you could 100% tell it's somebody trying to do a Rick voice.
It's a great impression. Like it's really good. And again, like in that second episode, if that had been the one I'd watched first for some reason and you hadn't told me, I there might have been something in the back of my mind. It's like, something sounds odd here, but I wouldn't have connected that it would have been a different person. It just sounds like really similar. So I honestly, the voice acting for anyone who's doing Rick and Morty or anything that Justin Roiland would have been doing, that is the least of the show's concerns at this point.
I mean,
like 100%.
From the start, like, because I was enjoying the previous season of Rick and Morty.
Yeah, the last one was great. Yeah,
it was like such a big like return to form. Like, because the last, maybe not the two before, but at least the one before that wasn't great. Again, still better than most animated shows, but I
don't think that there might be the odd episode that sort of like dips below a certain standard of some of the others, maybe, but also you're not going to get that.
No, I mean,
like from every episode isn't going to be a pickle Rick or whatever. You know, there's going to be some dips, but there's not been a season that's sort of like, no, that's the weaker one. If anything, this one now I'm just sort of like of the two that I've seen, and you know, again, my mate's got a very similar taste to me, so potentially there's now more misses than hits in this season. Yeah. So I need to watch the rest of it if there's like 4 or 5 others out, just to kind of get the sense of it.
My biggest problem with the season before last was there was less Rick episodes, and I know that's trying to branch out to get more story developed for the other characters, but Rick's by far the most important character of the whole of all of it. Like, not even Morty, it's all about Rick. And I like all the Council of Rick stuff, so I love all of that. And when they actually stop being silly and delve more into like the actual lore, like when we use them as examples for I forgot what you called it for Loki. So it's something that has to happen. So we were saying like if they didn't get the booklet for the TVA, would that just mean that it wouldn't happen, or does it have to happen where he's wrote it, he's added stuff to it, and then it gets that kind of, I forgot what you called now. But when they started using all that for that, the same thing always happens. So like a Rick will come from a different dimension, tell him about the time travel and everything else, and that'll get him going, and then that'll lead to this, and that'll lead to this, and that'll lead to this. It's complicated as shit, but it's interesting. And you'll have your certain ones, so you'll have like Beth's fucking clone just zipping about and then falling in, like they have a thing together with real Beth, even though it might not be real Beth. And even like the Jerry stuff's like, a lot of the episodes are okay, they're quite funny, but I don't know what it was with that season where there was just very little Rick, and that ruined it a bit for me. Although I did see a bit for this season where there's another Pickle Rick moment. And
if there is, I don't think I've seen that.
I don't know if it's that in episode 1, 2, 3, or whatever. I just saw it as a clip pop up on Instagram, and I'm like, it's the same joke. it's not Pickle Rick, but
they've probably done that on purpose because like, I turned myself into a banana, and it'd be like, what are you doing this for? We've already done this. Or it's they're traveling between another dimension, and someone's done that, and then a thing falls on and squishes him and kills him, and they're like, well, that's why I don't do that anymore. Yeah. Like, it could just tie into a thing making fun of itself rather than just, I'm a banana now and I've got to do a whole story as a banana. Because if that's the case, that's very lazy, and it just doesn't seem like the writers of this show would be.
I don't think they would.
Lazy.
I would assume, because of everything that's gone on, Dan Harmon will be taking over a lot of the writing stuff.
I really don't know.
Because I think, I could be wrong, but Justin Roiland was more of the zany, crazy stuff going on, probably your Pickle Rick moments and everything else, whereas Dan Harmon was more about the lore and the backstory and everything else. Could be wrong on that. I don't know.
I don't know enough to know that.
I would assume that because of them, what's happening, because of these new people taking over the voices, they're going to lean very much more into the solid structure story, because it has to be good. They've already okayed like the next 10 seasons. So.
Well, what about Solar Opposites then? Because wasn't that Justin Roiland and Mike McMahon?
So
Mahan.
I stopped watching Solar Opposites quite early on because I just didn't find it good. But I did watch the reveal for the new voice of that, and I don't know if you remember.
I haven't seen, like, because I don't love it, but I do quite enjoy Solar Opposites. But I'm not, like, that transition hasn't happened yet. So if there's a thing that happens to explain it, whatever, I don't tell them.
I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I will tell you that what happens is what I said would happen for Rick and Morty. So,
I don't remember that.
No. So, I mean, I'll find it. It's on the podcast, but...
Well, don't tell me.
No. But I'm saying it like I said, what I think would be a completely Rick and Morty way of doing like that voice change would be it's a completely different voice, and something happens, and it's kind of just gone, well, what's happened? And then it just goes, meh, and then it goes on. It's a similar thing.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you what it is. But I will say I don't like the voice at all, because it's not like with Rick and Morty where they've got someone to do an impression. It's a completely different voice, and it doesn't work for me.
Right.
But I also didn't like Solar Opposites very much. So.
I think because I might be wrong here. I'm just going to have a quick Google, but I think it was Justin Roiland and Mike McMahon rather than him. And yeah, it is Mike McMahon or McMahon maybe. McCann. Either way, though, he was the showrunner for Lower Decks, or is the showrunner for Lower Decks, and in my eyes, he's putting more effort into that than he is with Solar Opposites. Yeah. Certainly with this, if he's still a part of Rick and Morty, or whatever, he's like Lower Decks has just been getting better season to season to season.
I'm behind on Lower Decks as well, but the quality of Lower Decks has been good from the very beginning onwards. And the more it's gone on, and the more obviously positive praise that it's got, the more it's kind of like lent into itself to just be that
there's so many deep cuts
Star Trek thing, because Star Trek doesn't get to be silly very often, really. I know you have like silly episodes here and there, even with the older stuff like going to fucking Sherwood Forest and everything else, but 98% of Star Trek is quite serious in compared to Lower Decks, at least anyway. Polar opposites just seem to be
Solar Opposites.
Solar Opposites, sorry. What's fucking Polar Opposites? That's definitely a thing.
Two different
No.
viewpoints.
I mean, like, that's definitely a show or a film.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'm almost sure it is. But Solar Opposites just seem to be. You love fucking Rick and Morty. This is a show made by Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
He's also the voice of the fucking main guy, and he sounds just like Rick, and he's random, and he says zany things here and there. No effort. It just didn't see. I only got through about maybe 8 episodes.
Like,
maybe
honestly,
not even
the
that.
stuff that goes on in the wall is way more interesting than anything that they get up to as like aliens with their crazy tech or whatever. Like, people just being shrunk down and dropped into this wall. This is like huge, like Game of Thrones kind of drama thing that's going on inside it. That is way more interesting than most of the things that are happening in the episode. But with Lower Deck, like they just seem to be like, it's not sort of like, oh bloody, Khan. Oh, remember Khan? Like they, like at the end of the last season. I mean, I don't know whether I should tell you this because I mean, what? But to be fair, even if you watch it, no. But this is about a character that you will not know about, and there's a very good joke that's within it. So, basically, like Robert Duncan McNeil, who plays Tom Paris in Voyager, he's come back as the voice of Tom Paris. Right. Like Boimler is basically hallucinating. He's got these collectible plates, like these Voyager plates, and the plate of Tom Paris is just talking to him to like talk him through a problem. But whilst he's obviously cast as Tom Paris for Voyager, in Next Generation, Robert Duncan McNeil is also in an episode of Next Generation as someone called Nick Locarno,
right? Who
was it was like a Wesley Crusher episode basically, but he plays a guy in that. And that character, who's in one episode, has come back in Lower Decks as like a big deal. And like everyone's just sort of like, oh yeah, we know this guy. He was like drummed out of Starfleet for causing some kid to get killed like fucking forever ago, whatever. And then there's just one guy who's just going, he looks a lot like Tom Paris though, doesn't he? Like, he's like, does no one else see this? Like, so it's not talked about. Like, it's not talked about. But I was just like, that's such a weird thing. Like, if you're really into the Next Generation, even if you watch the whole show through once, you're probably not going to remember that one guy from that one thing. Like, I recognised it as soon as they said it because I was just like, Locarno from that fucking Nova Squadron. But there's like another character who was in that same episode who then is in a future episode of the Next Generation where Picard like hires her, well, not hires her, but he like approves her transfer onto the ship, and she's like, oh, I made this mistake, or blah blah blah, and he was like, yeah, I know, that's why I took you on, because you recognize that you made a mistake and whatever. But then she turns out to be like one of Mariner's friends when they were at the academy together, and I was like, that's such a cool, like, because it's not like, oh, it's another Q thing, like that people would know. It's just like, unless you remember this exact thing that happened once and then it's never been mentioned again, like that, that would just be two random new characters that you just wouldn't.
It's good though, because
and that's what I mean. That's so much effort and thought into going into like what little random nuggets that we can pull from that people won't maybe get without going back and watching some stuff to understand it.
It doesn't. If you don't get the joke that it's a throwaway character, and it's not Picard coming in, or it's not Q, it's not these big named popular characters. It is basically a random person, and it's kind of like your Rick and Morty thing, with the Szechuan sauce, like and not to the same level of stupidity, but it's, you don't get it, doesn't matter. It doesn't
you still
change
get why
the episode or anything.
Yeah, you understand that it's like it's a thing, you can't get it anymore.
Yeah.
And you understand that he's into it, and the only time he can get it is in his own memory. Yeah. That makes sense. You don't have to have had it to get that understanding behind it.
Exactly. And that's stuff like that in Lower Decks. Because I think Lower Decks is far less popular than it should be. And I honestly think a lot of that is down to it being a Paramount. It's on Paramount, and I know it's on Prime now, but it needs to be a Netflix show to get that popularity.
Yeah, I mean, all of Star Trek is on Netflix as well. So, other than like your newest, like Strange New Worlds and Discovery, and that isn't anymore because they lost it. But all of the old stuff is very much still there.
But Lower Decks ain't.
No, but that seems like it's just like an Amazon Prime kind of deal.
I assume that they're paying a lot of money for it.
I think it is one of the like that and Strange New Worlds, and other than the last season of Picard, which was just fucking amazing. But like that's kind of the best consistent thing that they've made in a long time.
Well, considering,
and it's because it's not like, oh my god, I don't believe it. It's Captain Picard. He's come to visit. Like there's none of that. Yeah. There's no like big names that just sort of roll through every now and then. Like people will talk about it and joke about it or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, oh well, this is what Picard would do. Blah, blah, blah. But whenever someone pops in, it's like, oh, it's this guy from this show from 40 years ago. He's in it. I get that because I watched the show. Yeah. Like it seems like that's what I mean. Like with something like that, it seems like it's far more well written around understanding the people who would watch the show, rather than just it's a Borg. It's a what would people get? Captain Picard, Janeway, maybe. Yeah. You sort of get them coming in every 3 times a week or whatever, and they just don't do that. They just go, that was a funny thing that happened all those years ago because it was a continuity error or they fucked up in production or something. Let's just take the piss out of it for 10 minutes.
Well, that's why it works though, because it's written. Those jokes are for you people.
Yeah.
Whereas
you people,
the show it seems to be very cleverly written in the fact that you don't have to watch Star Trek to like Lower Decks. It's fun, It's funny on its own merit, just as a science fiction show.
It's a silly, funny,
And if you realistically, I know with the very different styles of things, but I would say if you like Rick and Morty, you'll like Lower Decks. It's that kind of animation. The same way that I'd go if you like that, you'll like Gravity Falls, because it's a similar mindset, but it's equally done for people that like Star Trek and people that don't like Star Trek. And I'd say it's the only show that does that, because as much as I like Strange New Worlds, I did like Next Generation as well. I haven't finished Picard, but I did like Picard. But the main reason I liked Picard was because it didn't feel like Star Trek.
Well, wait until when you get to that 3rd season, it's a whole different show.
So for good or bad for me,
it would. I don't like. There's a lot of it which is kind of like, oh my god, it's that person that I haven't seen since the Next Generation. But it's more. It is better. Like I don't think like it's the highest rated season of that show by a significant margin, and people are just like, oh god, thank God, something is finally. I think it's mainly Terry Matalas who's kind of come in and steered the ship. They steered it in the right direction, and like people are like, get this guy, whatever your next big idea is, or whatever, get him to do it, because people did not like Discovery and the way it ended up. They didn't like Picard. And then Strange New Worlds came out, which was kind of like, oh, let's see if we can go back to, let's make it episodic and it's about the bridge crew or whatever. And people are like, good, well done, you're back on track. Then Lower Decks was like, and people were like, oh, it's funny, but it's for me and it's making fun of a thing that I enjoy and that's cool. And then season 3 of Picard just kind of came out of nowhere. And it was just like, why the fuck didn't you do this the first 2 seasons? This is amazing.
I would assume a lot of that's got to do with Patrick Stewart's age and health and stuff as well, where they're just like,
well, if they
could be the last one.
We'll do one more and we'll have an absolute blowout and we'll get everybody back and we'll do some. But it's not just the fact that it's like, oh my god, it's Brent Spiner, oh my god, it's Michael Dorn. It's the story around all of them and getting them all back together. It just works, and like that again, it feels like they've gone just like it's well done. Like the first 2 seasons, they're not well received. You go in and you take the helm and you kind of you do whatever you want to and just make it work. And then he's sort of like, well, I super care about this, and we'll make it work properly, and we'll get everything. And it feels like that's what they've done with Lower Decks as well. But with Solar Opposites, I think you're right that they said, oh, and if you like Rick and Morty, here's Solar Opposites, like it's crazy aliens, and it's not. No, they're not even the same league. It's in terms of like
animation's fine. But the jokes aren't funny. It doesn't seem to be very well written, never mind like clever writing or anything. It's just not very good. And I feel about it saying, and I think you liked it, but when they did the Cleveland show, and it was just like
I did watch the Cleveland show.
I watched it, but again, there was nothing else on at that point. But that was very much. It's just if you like Family Guy, you'll love this because it's kind of the same thing, but it's not really. and all the writers are doing Family Guy, so this is what we got.
Yeah.
And it's just like, nah. Whereas American Dad, that was a different story altogether. I loved American Dad. I think that's better than Family Guy, personally.
The sort of like there's a crossover point where they kind of like
amalgamate.
Like it kind of drops off, but then American Dad's kind of peaking at that point. But to be fair, I think they kind of switch back around again because I've watched some of the newer seasons of American Dad, and I'm just sort of like, you're on like season 18 now, like maybe like you constantly make fun of like The Simpsons and stuff like that for going on for too long. You've been going for about 20 years at this point, so maybe calm down on the taking the piss out of everyone else, and But I mean, there's still some really good, funny stuff in it as well.
Definitely, yeah. I think we'll leave it there, mate, because we're over the 2 hour mark, and I have nothing else to say.
No. Ideally, you could watch. I asked you to finish Space Jam Legacy. Did you do that? No, never mind.
I haven't watched Space Jam Legacy, Dan, because I'll be honest.
Wow.
I completely forgot. However, what I will promise, I'm gonna continue watching Lower Decks.
Okay.
And I won't be up to where you are, but this time next
it's like
week.
season 4 now.
But what we'll do, there was a little thing I started doing where I do a little Star Trek trivia thing towards the end of the podcast. We stopped doing that, luckily. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to say something that's from like the most recent Lower Deck episode I've watched, and you've got to tell me what the episode is. Not necessarily.
Oh, I don't.
Not the title.
I don't know numbers and stuff.
No. Not like, that's from season 2, episode 17, titled this. But what you got to tell me is what the episode's about, or
oh god,
I will accept who said it. It'll be
sure.
It'll be a line.
Okay,
maybe. I'll figure it out. Ready for next week. Because you might not get that.
What you need to do then, ideally, is when you get up to the end of season 3 of Lower Decks, is probably when you need to start watching Strange New World season 2.
Did I not start Strange New World season 2?
Mate, I don't think you finished season 1.
I definitely finished season 1.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but I can't remember if I started 2 or not.
No, because I think you would have. No,
I didn't, and I don't know why, but I can't say it on here. But I know.
Okay,
I remember why.
Sure.
Yeah. So season 3 Lower Decks. Start watching season 2 Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, it's purely just for one episode within season 2, but then.
Oh, I already know what it is.
Yeah. It's just so it just lines up a little bit better for you.
I shall do that. So this time, well, not this time, but next episode of this podcast, Dan, we'll go back to, I'm going to call it Lower Deck Summit. They'll have a cool name and a jingle.
Okay, good. Well, that means I just need to go back and rewatch all the fucking Lower Decks then, I guess.
Nope.
I mean, to be fair, well, try and stop me. I do kind of like dip in and out, to be fair. It's like Big Mouth or something like that. Like when I'm just doing a thing, I'll have something on, and like that is a good thing to have on for that as well.
That's another good example of our comparison thingy for Rick and Morty to Solar Opposites, etc. Big Mouth and what was the
Human Resource?
That was garbage.
Yeah, I watched about 2 of those and I was like, this is not the same.
I don't think I got that far. Maybe 1.5, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing where it's like, yeah, you love Big Mouth. You like this. It's from the same people. Is it the same thing? It's from the same people. It's good. It's from the same people. But if you want to see some more stuff that we've done, that is the same kind of thing as this. It's you can go to the website, which is podcastversusplayer.com. It's all going along the bottom of the screen right now. And Dan, thank you for joining me. And I'll see you on the next one.
Indeed.
Bye-bye.